Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something straight from the heart. Life will break you, shake you, stretch you, and test you in ways you never saw coming. But the beauty of life is that every single day, you get another shot at rebuilding yourself. Every single morning, God hands you a brand new page, but it's on you to pick up the pen and write something better than yesterday. You can't grow if your eyes are always on somebody else's life. You can't rise if you keep comparing your journey to what the world shows you on a screen. Your focus has to shift back to the mirror, because a person in that reflection is the only competition you truly have. Focusing on yourself every day is the foundation of rebuilding your life, because nothing around you can truly change until something within you changes first. Every morning gives you an opportunity to take one small step toward the person you're trying to become. But that only happens when your attention is centered on your own journey. Most people spend their lives watching what everyone else is doing, worrying about who's ahead, who's winning, who's achieving more, and who seems happier. All that energy wasted on comparison keeps you from building the life you were meant to live. You can't rebuild anything if your eyes are always looking outward instead of inward. Real transformation happens in silence, in reflection, in honest self-awareness, in the moments when you decide to prioritize your growth over distractions, opinions, and noise. When you choose to focus on yourself, you begin to recognize your strengths and weaknesses without fear or judgment. You see where you've been limiting yourself, where you've been delaying your progress, and where you've been giving too much energy to things that don't serve your future. You start to understand that your habits shape your reality. Your discipline shapes your results. Your mindset shapes your opportunities. And all of these improve only when you devote consistent attention to your own life. Rebuilding yourself is not something that happens in one big moment. It happens through small daily choices. Choosing discipline over comfort. Choosing growth over excuses. Choosing progress over procrastination. When you make yourself the center of your focus, you begin to take ownership of your time and your energy in a way you never did before. Focusing on yourself also means giving yourself permission to outgrow who you used to be. Too many people stay stuck because they are loyal to an old version of themselves, a version that tolerated disrespect, avoided responsibility, played small, doubted their abilities, or settled for less than they deserved. To rebuild yourself, you must be willing to release that version of you. You must be willing to step into discomfort, because discomfort is where growth begins. Every time you push yourself to think better, act better, work harder, and live with higher intention, you are building a new layer of strength, confidence, and purpose. And when you do this daily, the layers become a foundation. Steady, grounded, and unshakable. Another reason dais on yourself is essential is because life will always pull you in different directions if you let it. People will demand your attention. Circumstances will distract you, emotions will tempt you to react instead of respond, and old habits will try to pull you back into patterns that don't lead to growth. If you don't make yourself a priority, something else will take that place. Focusing on yourself is a discipline, and like any discipline, it must be practiced every day. Some days you will feel motivated, other days you will feel tired or discouraged. But rebuilding yourself requires showing up even when you don't feel like it. You learn to keep promises to yourself, and that builds a level of trust and self-respect that becomes unbreakable. When you make yourself your daily focus, you start to attract better opportunities, better relationships, and better outcomes. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you become stronger, wiser, and clearer. You stop settling. You stop chasing validation. You stop living for approval. Instead, you start living with intention, purpose, and commitment. You begin to shape your future, Instead of simply reacting to your circumstances, you rebuild your confidence by showing yourself that you are capable of change. You rebuild your peace by protecting your mind from negativity. You rebuild your future by investing in your goals consistently. Over time, these small, daily moments of self-focus create a transformation so powerful that even you will look back and barely recognize the person you used to be. Your only true competition is the person in the mirror, because the greatest battles you will ever fight are internal, not external. Most people spend their lives trying to measure up to others, comparing their progress, their success, their appearance, their money, or their opportunities with what they see around them. But comparison steals joy, kills potential, and distracts you from the one journey that actually matters, your own. When you focus on competing with others, you lose control of your direction. You start chasing standards that were never meant for you, trying to fit into timelines that don't belong to you, and judging your worth based on someone else's highlight reel. But when you compete only with yourself, everything changes. You begin to ask a different question every day. Am I better than I was yesterday? That question alone shifts your mindset, your habits, and your purpose. The person in the mirror is the only one who knows your struggles, your pain, your dreams, and the silent battles you fight. Nobody else wakes up with your worries. Nobody feels your doubts the way you do, and nobody carries your responsibilities. So why measure your life against people who don't share the same path, the same circumstances, or the same challenges? When you understand that your growth is personal and your journey is unique, you take back your power. You start creating a life that reflects your values, not the expectations of society. Competing with yourself means recognizing that the road to success is not about being better than someone else. It's about being a better version of who you were before. It's about leveling up mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, one day at a time. When you shift your focus inward, you begin to take responsibility for your behaviors and decisions. You stop blaming others for your lack of progress, and instead, you look at what you can improve within yourself. Maybe you need more discipline. Maybe you need more patience. Maybe you need to let go of certain habits or people. Maybe you need to push yourself harder or believe in yourself more. These realizations only come when you stop looking outward and start paying attention to your own growth. Self-competition teaches you accountability. It forces you to confront your weaknesses not with shame, but with the belief that you have the power to change them. Competing with yourself also builds confidence because every win becomes personal. When you set a goal and you hit it, no matter how small, you prove to yourself that you are capable. When you push past a limit you once thought was impossible, you expand your potential. These moments stack up over time. They create a mindset that says, if I could do that yesterday, I can do even more today. You're no longer motivated by external approval. You're driven by internal growth. I'm not talking motivation is unshakable because it doesn't depend on anyone else's opinion or validation. The person in the mirror will also be the one who challenges you the most. That reflection holds you accountable because deep down, you know when you're giving your best and when you're settling for less. You know when you're making excuses, when you're avoiding responsibility, or when you're holding yourself back because of fear. And when you become honest with that person in the mirror, you unlock a level of self-awareness that leads to real transformation. You stop living life on autopilot. You start making intentional choices. You begin setting standards that align with the future you want instead of the comfort you're used to. At the end of the day, the journey of rebuilding your life is not about outshining others, but about outgrowing your past self. When you focus on competing with the person in the mirror, you stop rushing, you stop comparing, and you start evolving. You move at your own pace, you celebrate your own wins, and you build a life grounded in authenticity, purpose, and self-respect. Growth requires removing distractions, toxic people, and old habits because you cannot rise while holding on to the very things that keep pulling you down. Every stage of your life will demand a different version of you, and that version cannot be built if your environment is filled with noise, negativity, and patterns that no longer serve your future. Most people never grow because they refuse to let go. They cling to comfort, cling to familiar chaos, cling to relationships that drain them, and cling to habits that steal their potential. But real growth requires pruning. It requires clearing space. It requires the courage to cut away the things that look harmless on the surface, but quietly limit your progress every single day. Distractions are one of the biggest enemies of personal growth. They come in many forms. Social media, unnecessary drama, procrastination, spending too much time on entertainment, constantly seeking validation, or focusing on things you cannot control. When your mind is cluttered with distractions, there is no room for clarity. You cannot hear your own thoughts or your own purpose when you are busy paying attention to everything except the life you're trying to build. Every time you say yes to a distraction, you are saying no to your progress. Growth happens when you become intentional about where your time goes. You choose activities that feed your future instead of draining your energy. You start valuing silence, focus, and discipline because these are the tools that help you rebuild yourself from the inside out. Toxic people are another major barrier to growth, and many people struggle to remove them because of history, guilt, or emotional attachment. But the truth is simple. You cannot elevate your life while surrounding yourself with people who think small, complain endlessly, disrespect your boundaries, or discourage your dreams. Some people are not toxic because they are bad. They are toxic because they are stuck, and their mindset becomes a cage that traps you too. When you spend too much time with people who don't grow, you stop growing too. Their doubts become your doubts. Their fears become your fears. Their negativity becomes your atmosphere. Growth requires protecting your energy, and that means distancing yourself from anyone who drains your peace or distracts you from your purpose. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to fight with them. You simply rise in a different direction. Old habits also hold you back because they keep you tied to the version of yourself that you're trying to outgrow. You cannot step into a new life with old behaviors. Whether it's laziness, inconsistent effort, overthinking, poor time management, emotional reactions, or staying in your comfort zone, these habits act like chains. They make you believe that change is impossible, even though you're fully capable of transforming your entire life. Breaking old habits requires honesty. You must look at yourself and admit what is no longer acceptable. You must replace those habits with new routines that align with your goals instead of your excuses. It won't be easy because the mind loves familiarity, even when the familiar is destructive. But growth begins when you choose discipline over temporary comfort. Removing distractions, toxic people, and old habits is not about creating a perfect life. It's about creating the right environment for your growth. You need space to think clearly, people who push you higher, and habits that support your vision. When you start letting go of what no longer serves you, you make room for opportunities, clarity, confidence, and purpose. Growth is not accidental, it's intentional. It's a daily process of choosing what strengthens you and releasing what weakens you. And when you commit to that process, your entire life begins to shift in ways you never imagined. Prioritizing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary for survival and success because you cannot pour into others from an empty cup. And you cannot build a meaningful life if you're constantly depleted, overwhelmed, or emotionally drained. Far too many people are taught to believe that putting themselves first means they don't care about others, but that belief is one of the main reasons people stay stuck stressed, and unfulfilled. The truth is, when you prioritize yourself, your peace, your health, your goals, your boundaries, you become stronger, wiser, and more effective in everything you do. You show up better for others because you're not running on fumes. You make better decisions because your mind is clear. You grow faster because your energy isn't scattered in 1,000 directions. Life demands a lot from you. Family, work, relationships, responsibilities, unexpected challenges, emotional burdens, and the silent internal battles nobody ever sees. If you don't take care of yourself, all of these demands will eventually break you down. People often ignore their own needs while trying to please others, help everyone, or meet expectations that don't align with their own happiness. But when you constantly put yourself last, you slowly lose your identity. You begin living for approval instead of purpose. You start believing that your worth depends on how much you sacrifice, how much you give, or how much you endure. And little by little, you forget that you deserve peace, rest, and growth just as much as anyone else. Prioritizing yourself means giving yourself permission to listen to your body and your mind. It means understanding when you need rest without guilt. It means recognizing when you need distance from certain people or situations that drain your energy. It means valuing your mental and emotional health enough to say no, even when saying yes feels easier. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear disappointing others, but every time you protect your time and your peace, you are telling yourself that your life matters. You're building self-respect. You're building confidence. You're building a stronger version of you. Putting yourself first also means investing in your own growth. If you want success, you need time to think, to plan, to learn, to reflect, and to work on your goals. You need the space to become who you were meant to be. When you prioritize yourself, you begin to set standards for the kind of people you allow into your life, the kind of energy you accept, and the kind of behavior you tolerate. You stop entertaining nonsense. You stop settling for less. You stop giving your time to people who don't appreciate it. You begin moving differently because you understand your value. There will always be people who try to make you feel guilty for prioritizing yourself, especially if they benefited from you putting yourself last. They will call you selfish when you stop letting them take advantage of your kindness. They will say you've changed when you stop accepting disrespect. They will question your choices when you start focusing on your goals instead of their demands. But that discomfort is part of growth. It means you're breaking old patterns, and people who were comfortable with the old version of you will have to adjust or fall away. Prioritizing yourself doesn't mean you stop caring about others. It means you start caring for yourself with the same intensity you give to everyone else. A healthier, happier, more focused version of you can give more, help more, love more, and achieve more. When you take care of yourself, everything in your life improves: your relationships, your decision-making, your productivity, your resilience, your mindset, and your opportunities. You become someone who operates from strength rather than survival, from clarity rather than chaos, and from purpose rather than pressure. Putting yourself first is not an act of selfishness. It's an act of strength. It's the foundation for every dream you want to achieve and every goal you want to reach. When you treat yourself like a priority, the world begins to treat you the same way. Rebuilding yourself means raising your standards and protecting your energy, because nothing in life grows in an environment of compromise, low expectations, or constant drain. Too many people move through life allowing mediocrity to dictate their choices, tolerating disrespect, settling for less than they deserve, and giving their time and energy to things that do not serve their purpose. But if you truly want to rebuild yourself, you must first understand that your standards are a reflection of your self-worth. They are a declaration of what you will accept and more importantly, what you will no longer accept. Raising your standards is not about arrogance or ego. It is about recognizing your value and refusing to live beneath it. It is about saying to yourself that your time, your dreams, your peace, and your potential are worth protecting and honoring every single day. Protecting your energy is just as critical as raising your standards because your energy is the fuel for everything you want to accomplish. When you allow toxic people, negative environments, or draining situations into your life, you are depleting the very force that could be used to rebuild your future. Energy is finite. You have a limited amount of mental, emotional, and physical strength each day, and how you spend it determines the quality of your results. If you are constantly giving away to people who don't value it or to activities that don't matter, you are sabotaging your own growth. Protecting your energy is not selfish. It is strategic. It means being intentional about who you allow in your space, what information you consume, and how you respond to challenges. It means creating boundaries that safeguard your peace and preserve your focus on what truly matters. Raising your standards also impacts your relationships because the people you surround yourself with are a direct reflection of your self-respect. When you set higher standards, you begin to attract people who match your energy, your vision, and your ambition. You begin to let go of those who drain you, doubt you, or hold you back, not out of anger, but out of necessity. The truth is, you cannot rise above the level of people and circumstances you allow into your life. Growth requires discernment. It requires understanding that not everyone who was once close to you deserves a place in the new version of your life. It is not about exclusion for the sake of ego. It is about inclusion of what nurtures, inspires, and elevates you. Protecting your energy also means being selective about how you respond to challenges, conflicts, and setbacks. Not every battle is yours to fight, and not every opinion requires your attention. Many people waste years engaging in things that drain them emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Rebuilding yourself requires learning to disengage from what is not yours to carry. It means refusing to internalize negativity, refusing to be drawn into unnecessary drama, and refusing to give away your power to circumstances or people who thrive on chaos. Every moment you spend protecting your energy is a moment invested in your growth, your peace, and your success. Raising your standards and protecting your energy go hand in hand because one reinforces the other. When you have high standards, you naturally eliminate distractions, low-quality relationships, and habits that do not serve your purpose. When you protect your energy, you create the mental clarity, focus, and resilience needed to uphold those standards consistently. Together, these practices create a foundation for rebuilding yourself that is unshakable. You begin to operate from strength instead of scarcity, from confidence instead of fear, and from purpose instead of survival. Over time, the choices you make to raise your standards and protect your energy compound, transforming not just your life, but the very way you perceive yourself, your potential, and the world around you. This approach teaches you that rebuilding yourself is not a one-time act. It is a continuous commitment to your worth, your peace, and your vision. It is a daily discipline that separates those who succeed from those who remain stuck. And when you embrace it fully, you discover the power, freedom, and clarity that come from living aligned with your highest standards and protected by your strongest boundaries. Oath 6 expanded to around 650 words. Without headings and without a conclusion, your transformation begins the moment you take full responsibility for your future, because nothing changes until you stop blaming the past, the people around you, or the circumstances you were born into. Too many people live their entire lives waiting for someone else to fix their problems, waiting for the perfect opportunity, or waiting for luck to show up. They blame bad relationships, bad bosses, the economy, or their upbringing, and in doing so, They give away the one thing that can actually create change, their own power. Transformation starts with the realization that your life is the result of your decisions, and if you want a different result, you must make different decisions. When you accept that truth, you take the first step toward rebuilding yourself, and that step alone is more powerful than anything else in the world. Taking responsibility for your future means owning your actions, your choices, and your mindset. It means recognizing that every habit you have, every thought you entertain, and every decision you make contributes either to your growth or to your stagnation. No one else can do the hard work for you. No one else can wake up each day, face the challenges, push past the doubts, and commit to the process of building a better life. You are the architect of your destiny, and if you want a strong foundation, you must be the one to lay it. This is not about perfection. It is about consistency, accountability, and the courage to face yourself honestly. Every step forward, no matter how small, compounds over time, creating momentum that propels you toward your vision. Taking responsibility also requires confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself. You have to admit where you've been wrong, where you've made excuses, and where you've allowed fear or laziness to dictate your life. This process is never easy because it challenges your ego and forces you to see parts of yourself you may have avoided. But true transformation cannot happen without self-awareness. When you are willing to look in the mirror and accept both your strengths and weaknesses, you gain clarity. You understand what must change, what must improve, and what must be let go. This honesty becomes the compass that guides your rebuilding process, helping you make decisions that align with your highest potential. Responsibility for your future also means being proactive instead of reactive. Many people wait for life to hand them opportunities, but the reality is that opportunity favors the prepared. When you take control of your life, you start to create opportunities instead of waiting for them. You start setting goals, making plans, and taking deliberate actions that move you closer to your vision. You begin to anticipate challenges and develop the skills, habits, and mindset necessary to overcome them. Transformation requires action, and action requires ownership. Without taking responsibility, action becomes inconsistent, and results become unpredictable. But when you commit to owning your journey, you begin to operate with intention, discipline, and purpose. Taking responsibility also shifts your mindset from victimhood to empowerment. Instead of asking, why me? You start asking, what can I do? You stop giving away your power to circumstances and start reclaiming it for yourself. You stop waiting for someone else to save you and start saving yourself. You realize that setbacks are not punishments but lessons, not failures but opportunities to learn, adjust, and grow stronger. Each challenge you face becomes a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block because you understand that your future is created by your actions today, not by your regrets yesterday. When you embrace full responsibility for your future, transformation becomes inevitable. You stop blaming, stop waiting, and stop excusing. You begin building the habits, mindset, and strategies that create long-term growth. You focus on solutions rather than problems, on progress rather than perfection, and on action rather than fear. And as you consistently take charge of your life, your self-confidence rises, your resilience strengthens, and your purpose becomes clearer. You discover that rebuilding yourself is not about changing overnight. It is about committing every day to the choices, actions, and mindset that will shape the life you desire and deserve. This is the moment where your transformation truly begins. The moment you stop waiting and start owning. The moment you realize that your future belongs to you and you alone. And the moment you decide to build it with intention, courage, and relentless focus.